Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, man, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, and it is the Thursday edition of the big radio show. Thank you for coming on board and being part of it with us today. Informative Thursday, Kim asks in the chat room, is that what we're going to start calling it? I don't know. Maybe. We're continuing on now this week with our new weekly guest, Ben Carpenter, who he and I have decided to collaborate on Thursdays and to go over, Thursdays during the session at least, to go over what's happening in the state. Ben, of course, a former representative here in the state of Alaska, and now the host of his fledgling podcast and streaming endeavor called Oversight Live, which has had his growing pains here. He's working through some technical difficulties and trying to get things squared away. But he's doing it. We're going to talk with him here in hour 2 about that. Maybe here in hour 1. We'll see. We'll see how far I go. I'm working on about 2 hours of sleep here, folks. So I apologize if it sounds a little funky today, but that's kind of where things are going this morning. So he may join me. He may try and rescue me out of hour 1 a little bit here. I got some things I want to talk about. I've been working on it all. I've been thinking about it, researching it, doing everything all week. So we'll see how it goes. But he may rescue me out of hour 1 before we get into hour 2. But in hour 2, we'll go through all the things that are happening down in Juneau from his perspective, the hot issues, what he's covering, and everything else. But that, like I said, may come into hour 2, or hour 1, may start out in hour 1. Wow, man. Sorry, getting to it. What was the big? Oh yeah, 39 degrees here on top of the world in Homer. It's a record high. I mean, it's bumping right up to that record high. 39 degrees and rain here on top of the world of beautiful Homer. This is after we got the 4.5, 5 inches of snow yesterday, day before. Part of yesterday, day before. Yeah, it's nice and warm here. It goes from the heat wave, the tropical heat wave, down here on top of the world in Homer, Alaska. No weather advisories or anything. I guess that they're still trying to move snow in Anchorage and everything else. And up in the Mat-Su, it got real warm. And even in Fairbanks, I don't know what the temperature is this morning, but yesterday it was 10, 12 above in the Fairbanks area after it had been, 40, 50 below. So it's great. It's crazy. But this is why I chose to live here. I would much rather have 39 and 39 in some crazy rain versus the 50 below. So there you go. There you go, guys. There you go. All right. So, how are my handlers today? Boy, apparently I ruffled somebody's feathers on my whole rant yesterday after talking with State Senator Mike Shower. And then I got a call from a couple people later on in the afternoon who only caught part of the show and are like, what was the deal with why did Shower have to leave after 30? What was going on with that? What did? And yeah, apparently apparently somebody they were not happy about my commentary on the and it wasn't from Shower's camp. It was somebody else. My commentary on this gating that I was talking about yesterday. And by gating I meant gatekeeping, and the handlers of many politicians who were like, oh, you can only talk to him for 7.5 minutes, and here's what he wants to talk about. And yeah, apparently I was too transparent. You know what really kills me is that they, over the course of years, and somebody mentioned this to me yesterday after the show, was that there are several handlers out there who before they will allow you the privilege of talking to their candidate, well, they want to have a conversation with you. They want to have a conversation. I'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you about, I mean, it's like it's an interview to do the interview. I mean, I'm like, that's not how it works, Jack. That's not. Did you see the thing right here on the show where it says my name on the show? I'm not doing an interview with you, Mr. or Mrs. Handler. I'm not doing an interview with you before I give your candidate a chance to have their say on the airwaves. Not only hell no, right? I mean, that you want to. I want to talk to you about what I want to talk to you about what I want you to talk to the candidate about, and screw you. All right, I'm sorry. If that is the criteria, then never mind. Invitation rescinded. Get out of my house, you vampire. Right? That's just, I'm sorry. It doesn't, no, that's not how it works. But by golly, even here in Alaska, the old little, I mean, the old backwater here of Alaska, that's not how it works. That may be how you want it to work. And maybe it shows that there's a level of control freakism, that some of these people are just, they're going to try to massage and manage everything. But I'm telling you, if a candidate's people, campaign handlers, whatever, gatekeepers, if they, because I have had, people say, well, can you send me some of the questions that and this is the mild version of that. Oh, can you send me some of the questions that you're gonna ask and talk? I have no idea what I'm gonna ask. Look, guys, this is a low budget radio show, right? And how I operate is this is like a cup of coffee around the dining room table. This is the water cooler discussion. This is the three old grumpy men around the campfire or around the wood stove at the hardware store. I'm not planning, some kind of, Machiavellian fifth dimensional chess where I'm going to be, springing. It's a conversation. Right? I mean, it's just a conversation of, well, tell me about yourself. Oh, well, tell me, there's some big things coming in the state. What do you think? And so when people send me a thing that says, well, we'd really like to know the questions in advance. Well, so would I. I mean, I really would too. I mean, I could tell you that I'm going to talk about the budget, the big issues that the legislature is always going to talk about, education and defined benefits. But I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But you want to massage and micromanage everything. I mean, Richie just said, how about the people running for office actually show some knowledge about our state and issues? We don't need to rehearse. Right. Like, and Chris, I will not vote for anyone that needs the questions beforehand. Right. And Lisa says, that's some made for TV BS. Right. Exactly. Oh, I'm going to do an interview with you before you get a chance to interview my guy. No. Are you kidding me? Oh, Rick, what did you do, man? Why did you drop that in the chat room this morning? Sorry, Rick was making the comment about the handlers. Sorry, that was total sidebar. Again, 2 hours of sleep. But yeah, I mean, yesterday, and I was, it was after the show. I'm still sitting there just kind of steaming about the whole things. I just like, we can't handle it if you put too much pressure on our candidate. To which I think, why are they running for office then? Now, Chris, always the voice of reason on YouTube, he says, to be fair, it's good to know what the topics of discussion would be at the very least. You're running for governor. What do you think the topics are going to be? You're running for the state house. What do you think the topics are going to be? You're running for borough mayor. What do you think the topics are going to be? Well, tell me how you feel about the war in Ukraine and oil prices being developed in Slovenia. Oh, I'm sorry, you're running for mayor of a borough. Oh, okay, well, still tell me. Come on, Chris. I would like to know the topics of discussion would be at the very least. I mean, what do you think? I'm going to ask him what he feels about Kim Kardashian's latest plastic surgery. Did she have plastic surgery? I don't even know. I mean, I just pulled that out of the air. I mean, does it... Come on. Come on. Are you kidding me? Holy cow. Today is not the day to poke me over that. And do not talk about deferred maintenance today. Okay? That was crazy. Yeah. I mean, so anyway, what was I going to talk about? I don't know. I just totally blew my whole plan for the hour already. So Fat Ray on the YouTube just said, no, Michael, they're afraid you'll ask them something pertinent. Yeah. I mean, look, okay, Lisa, now you're just getting hurtful. Lisa in the chat room just said, this is a no prep show. That's kind of hurtful because I do prep, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. I just read a lot of different things and gather a lot of different information. And then as the conversation organically happens, I'm able to pluck from that information and go back to other and pull it all together. It's again, This is not some game of I keep wanting to say fifth dimensional chess, but it's not some kind of strategic game where I'm thinking 17 moves ahead to what the next thing that he's going to. I'm actually genuinely interested in what these people have to say about certain things. And that in turn leads to other questions. And I'm not about off the wall questions. I don't know if I've ever really asked an when exactly did you lose your mind? That's my favorite thing, right? When exactly did you lose your mind? I guess that's because Chris just said, candidates have a history, interviewers have a history of humiliating candidates that rapid fire off the wall questions. I've never done off the wall questions. I try to keep every question pertinent to what's going on. And quite honestly, this is Joshua from yesterday. The problem we see with politics is that people are too polished. They aren't willing to step out to show their humanity often. And I think, again, talking about yesterday, we were talking about things like Sean Ryan and Joe Rogan and some of these long form things. That's why they want to see the deeper conversations, and this is why Trump is so popular, right? Trump is not a he's not a great human being, just in the way he treats people, right? I think we can all say that. But you know what they liked? They liked the authenticity, or at least his version of authenticity. They liked that he said he wasn't polished. He wasn't, shined to a point and would never say and talk nothing but politicalese. He gaffed and he bluffed and he did all kinds of, and people were like, "Wow, that's refreshing." They're not looking for this polished, absolutely pristine political answer on everything. Yeah. Anyway, that was wow. That's it right there. We're going to take a break. I am going to get around to the question. I was going to talk about something completely different. I think you guys can blame the chat room this morning. They immediately drug me off into the weeds. It's all their fault. I take no responsibility for it. Absolutely no. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Craig. Today is not the day. Craig says, "Please do. You've talked about this way too long." What do you mean? I talked about it for 12 minutes yesterday, and I talked about it for 10 minutes today. That's way too long. Okay, I'm glad that you are happy to receive from on high your ability with manageable sips that you are. I'm glad. Shower is doing what he needs to do. Give it a break. I'm not talking about shower specifically. That was the trigger. Like I said, that was just the trigger. And Mike was doing what he promised to do. He was upholding his word. That's fine. I was just saying in general, it wasn't, wow. Today's not the day, Craig. I'm just saying. Today is not the day. All right. Let's go over here. Crony capitalists. Rob's trying to drag me back on track. Crony capitalists. Oh, before we get to that, though, Oh, before we get to that, we're going to talk about this ranked choice voting thing because what the actual okay, let's see. Did I miss anything else here? No, because I didn't miss anything else because I'm paying way too much attention to the chat room, and it you guys drug me right off target. Right, I'm blaming it all on you. It's my fault, but I mean, geez. Rob says, "Gee, tell me how you really feel." I'm sorry. I'm going through. Now you've gone and done it, Rick. Everybody needs to blame Rick. Just chastise Rick for this. That's what he gets for, What did he say? I can't even remember what he said now. Something about a handler. Oh, yeah. Good morning. How are your handlers today? I did. Folks, apparently I hit a nerve. The only reason I jumped back into this is because apparently I hit a nerve because I had 3 phone calls about this yesterday. 3 different phone calls from different people from different perspectives on this, including from Chris Story, who's been trying to interview some people as well. And anyway, it's very interesting to say the least. Trying to decide whether or not I need to go get another Monster energy drink because that's the kind of day it is today. All right. Let's go. Let me go over here. Don't poke the lol Bert. Nope, good idea. I wish I could read the chat on YouTube. Well, you can go over to YouTube, Chris, and do that, or I can just highlight all the YouTube chats right there. Look right there. Look, there it is. Way to go, Rick. It's all Rick's fault. I was going to question your choice of Monster, but to each their own. I mean, it rotates. Grapefruit's my favorite. Even my dad said, "Thank you, Rick. Thank you." Yeah, Rick. I don't know if Dad was using a sarcasm font or not there, but there you go. Load. Oh, thank you, Brian. Sorry about that. Again, 2 hours, guys. Come on. Sorry. Let me make this even bigger for you. Say tall. Yep, there we go. Wide and tall? Nope, just tall. And big? Nope, too big. Medium? Nope, small, still good. All right, there you go. There you go. There's the chat widget. Thank you, Brian. You know what? I'm just going to take a nap right now. All right, we're going to continue here and get things ready to rock and roll. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do this thing.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Yeah. Josh still gets a B for his interview on Monday, even though he stayed for an hour. You know what? And there was no handler. He just stayed for the hour. That was all. That was all where we're at. Okay. What were we talking about? Ranked choice voting. That's what we were talking about. Ranked choice voting. Oh, man. We've got an opportunity this year. To repeal this absolutely hot brown mess, this poo parade that is ranked choice voting. But some people don't want that. Some people don't want that. No. Oh man. You know who's involved in this? You know who's in the mix on this right now? Well, of course, your old pal Scooter. your old pal Scott Kendall. He's in the mix of this. And the lawsuit is being brought to you by Senator Kathy Giesel, who would not be in there if it weren't for ranked choice voting. Also brought to you by Joel Hall, president of the Alaska AFL-CIO. And Wahala Gidag Barbara Blake. Really, WAAHLAAL Gidag, GIDAAG. Wahala Gidag Barbara Blake, a Juneau resident and a nonpartisan. They contend that the state's ballot language is different from the language that was provided on the signature petitions circulated by the repeal campaign. You know what this feels like? This goes right back to lawfare. Because, again, it's filed by, who's it filed by? Scott Kendall, who was, again, the architect and the mouthpiece for the original ranked choice voting thing from the very beginning. And it is so ironic in their complaints. They say deficiencies, partisan cessation, and falsehoods in the ballot language give rise to this litigation, because they're feeling like people might be bamboozled by this ballot language for the repeal. Now, again, the irony here is that these are the same people that put out the dark money. The dark money part. They're the same people that put out the dark money part while ranked choice voting was up to be voted on, right? I mean, of all the ads, and boy, howdy, we were in the thick of it. I mean, I was running the radio stations in Anchorage when this all went down, and I can tell you that about 90% of their ad copy had nothing to do with ranked choice voting. In fact, I think there was one ad of all the different ads that they ran. There was one or two ads that even mentioned or explained what the ranked choice voting component was. Every other ad was about
dark money.
That's what it was about. Dark money. Dark money. So, I mean, out of the mouth speaks the heart. Talking about bait and switch, because they were using dark money, millions and millions of dollars in dark money, to promote this ranked choice voting scheme, while ostensibly saying, well, it's really about protecting you from dark money. Their complaint says the new ballot measure seeks to fully repeal the prior ballot measure and undo 3 different policies, right? One of them was, of course, the open jungle primary, which is part of our problem here in the gubernatorial race, and one of the reasons why I think we're not having candidates who are actually talking about the freaking issues that are really, important, but are still instead talking about platitudes like affordable energy and affordable housing and affordable infrastructure and we just put the word affordable on the front of anything and then we can talk about it, instead of talking about affordable leadership, instead of talking about, the issue of the budget and that's why we're all caught up in that, because nobody wants to get cut out in the cold on this 47 people jungle primary thing. So that was the first part of it. The second part is the ranked choice voting system. And then also there was a ban according to the founders and on dark money contributions. Again, the irony of the fact that these people are using $7.2 million in outside money to try and influence Alaskans to vote for this to begin with was just, so anyway, Scooter said that their complaint tries to the complaint says that the ballot measure seeks to fully repeal the private ballot measure and undo the 3 policies. Now, the state contends that, look, this is just plain ballot language. And this is part, by the way, this is all part and parcel of the same thing that happened during the last ranked choice voting. Remember, there was a lot of outside money that got poured into this to try and protect it. And Scooter was at every hearing. They took Phil Eyes on, and they took Art. I've forgotten Art's last name right off the top of my head here. But the 2 guys that were all part of it, they went to court. They filed APOC complaints. They brought everything under the light. It was just basic lawfare out there at every opportunity, at every turn, right? To try and put as much negative light and pressure on it. They tried to confuse. They tried to, obfuscate. They did it all. And guess what? Well, they did a pretty good job because apparently people were confused. Because I talked to people after the last ballot measure, the repeal effort, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I voted no. I didn't want ranked choice voting." No, you were supposed to vote yes to repeal it, not no that you didn't. Oh, well, how was I supposed to know? So again, this is all about muddying the waters. But again, you could see where the fingers are. You got Kathy Giesel, who is just desperate to remain in control and relevant, right? Who knows that the only way that she got through, the only way that she beat Roger Holland was through that ranked choice voting, because she can say she's an R, but then reach across, and then she's all buddy with Matt Clayman and all these other Democrats and everything. So now look at me, I'm nonpartisan. I'm from the middle, that she can do all those things. Then you got Joel Hall, who is absolutely all about this stuff, because they're getting the folks in there who want bigger, badder, broader government, which of course is big part of it. And again, she's all about, I don't know who the third person is. Wahalal Gadag Barbara Blake. 4 names. Anyway, but you can see what this is all about. This is a desperation play. Where's it going to go? We'll see. The state again said that they're all about it. The state says it's all good, and they're going to fight this. Now, where does it go from here? I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see as we go forward. Nearly all the money, by the way, that has come for this lawsuit is from the United America PAC. It's a Denver-based group that was the largest funder of the campaign that enacted the ranked choice voting and open primary. And the group lists Giesel and Hall as some of the deputy treasurers in their filings with the Public Offices Commission. And we'll see. We'll see how much this all comes back to and what comes of it. But you can see exactly what's happening. This follows the standard pattern of lawfare that Scooter Kendall and company have been prosecuting since the very beginning. And they're going to do it. You're going to have to drag them kicking and screaming away from their favorite little thing. Because why? Well, again, let me just back up for a second. Scooter Kendall was in the camp of Lisa Murkowski. And he understood that with Lisa, all the things that she had been doing, and that she was becoming more and more distasteful to the more conservative elements of the electorate and the Republican Party, et cetera, et cetera. And the only way that she was going to be able to remain in office was that if he enacted this ranked choice voting thing. Now, there's some who've speculated that Murkowski and Scooter Kendall were all, worked together. And I'm not sure that that's true or not. I think that he just saw this as an opportunity to make sure that his gravy train remained in office. and that he cooked it up with some help of some of the folks from the from outside of Alaska. Because there's, again, folks, there are plenty of people out there outside of Alaska who want to see this ranked choice voting thing. They want to break down the standard constitutional republic with a democratic style voting system. They want to break that down and water it down and break it apart. And remember, they saw Alaska as a cheap date because it's a huge state with very little population, and they could spend a handful of dollars here compared to having to do it in some place like California or Washington or something. And they could spend a handful of dollars here and get the law changed and then use it as a stepping stone to say, look, Alaska's doing it. And that's exactly what they did. So, they don't want Lisa out of office. Kathy Giessel doesn't want to be out of office. The labor unions don't want the big government R's out of office. So, of course, they're going to fight back against this. Of course they are. That makes total sense. The complaint names the Division of Elections, the Lieutenant Governor, and Carol Beecher, head of the Alaska Division of Elections, as plaintiffs in this. But again, the we'll see. We'll see where it goes. We're going to be back. I guess I'm out of gas on that topic, but I just, I was looking at this, and especially when it was Giessel and Joelle Hall were some of the prime movers on this, and Scott Kendall was driving the bus as the attorney. It's just, again, this is just more of the same. All right, we got to go. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, I stand corrected. Rob says that Barbara is on the Juneau Assembly. So that's, I don't know who she is. I'm not following the local politics in Juneau. Kelly Merrick doesn't, I'm sorry, I'm going back over here. Wow, you guys got real verbose there for here. Okay, I'm in rare form. Getting there. Okay, desperation. I'm voting for us to prosperity. I wish we could split the measure and address the ranked choice voting and the campaign issues separately. Yeah, Josh and I are not going to agree on this. I don't believe that ranked choice voting is a good measure. But I would love to see it. See, this is the thing. The whole ranked choice voting issue to begin with should have been separate ballot issues to begin with because of the single subject rule for ballot measures. And that's part of the problem. Now they're conjoined. It makes it much more difficult to split them out. Let's see. The same people, the same issues, planned obsolescence through taxes. Yeah, Corey says, like the last ballot measure made it so clear about what your vote was. That's true. That's true. What about the affordable weed? How is Michael's blood pressure? It's fine. It's fine. Kelly Merrick, says Willie, doesn't like it when testifiers tell the Senate committee to declare a conflict of interest if they took money from the union, when they're trying to give defined benefits to the union. Of course he doesn't. Have you seen the charter of changes, right? What was the change the rules? Remember what the conflict of interest? Remember that? Ben's in the green room, and I haven't even got to my. Sorry, Ben. I went off the rocker in the first segment there, man. I was expecting him to come on the last segment here, and we'll probably bring him on here in a minute. But I do want to talk about this whinging from the. I don't think I spelled whinging right. I think it's spelled winging in the description. But whinging, the whining from the construction industry about how the state hasn't given them their lolly. Good morning. I'm good. Problem. I'm sorry. Oh God. And then Harold. Yeah. I vote virtually every. I will note. Geez. Good Lord. I will note virtually every ranked choice voting initiative across these United States went down hard. True. And in fact, in some states, they literally outlawed it. Good morning. Bernadette for governor will be at 6 to 8 p.m. tonight, Paradisios. Yep. I'm sorry. It was a legal ballot. Boy, you guys, I'm all over the place here. All over the place. All right. Are we still up to 15 candidates running for governor? Last I checked, nobody's bowed out. So that's a yes. All right. Ben, should I bring Ben on for discussion about this next thing? I probably should, because it's not fair of me to have him just hanging out in the wings, right? I mean, he is eating all my virtual donuts. Damn him. All right, let's do this. Let's bring him on, because I feel bad about having him hang out in the back room while I'm over here, gaslighting the world here. All right. Good morning, Ben Carpenter. Hello, my friend. How are you today?
Good morning, Michael. How's the audio and video working?
Audio looks good. Your video is a little grainy. I think that just may be internet more than anything else, but
Might be.
You sound good. So we're all good. I know you've been fighting the techno demons for days. I never know when I push the on button whether there's going to be two of me talking. I don't know. Oh yeah. Well, welcome to low budget radio. That's how it works. There are times when I will wake up in the morning and turn everything on and immediately realize that I have to rewire everything because something just decided to arbitrarily reset itself. It does happen. All right. Well, Ben, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to talk a little bit about this crony capitalism thing, and I'll bring you on to discuss it with me here. But I wanted us to be in it to win it together here. So we'll get to it right now. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Okay. One final segment. And I'm joined early here by my friend Ben Carpenter, who I invited on to come on at the end of the hour he's trying to counterbalance me because I'm a little bit out of control today. All right. I'm a little bit out of control. And Ben, I don't know, what's your hot take on my ranked choice voting rant there? I mean, is this just more of the same?
We may be in trouble. Like we may be holding hands as we jump off the cliff.
I know, really. I mean, do you feel like I have to wipe my mouth to get the froth out, away from my mouth over this kind of stuff? But let me tell you, this is the other thing that just gets me is that here we got, the problem in this state, and I think you and I have talked about this specifically together as well, but I know separately we've talked about it in different terms and using different words. My whole point is that we become a dependency state in so many ways. And we could talk about the welfare component, the social safety net component, what people would think about as progressive ideals, which is everybody's got to have Medicaid, everybody's got to have the housing, everybody's got to have benefits, all paid for by the state. And then on the other side of the political spectrum, we've got this enormous amount of crony capitalism. And here in this state, that is very prevalent among the healthcare industry, among the telecoms, and especially among the construction industry, where businesses have built their entire business model around government contracts. And so we have this welfare we got corporate welfare and we've got social safety net welfare on both sides. And the people in the middle who don't participate in either one of those things are the ones that are getting squeezed. And I know we've talked about that before. Now here's the latest. An article from yesterday. The Dunleavy administration contradicts industry calls for urgent action. The coalition, there's a coalition out there of major businesses and industry groups that are now urging the legislature and telling them that they must adopt a $70 million funding request immediately to secure federal transportation projects. These are matching funds. Now, the Department of Transportation's commissioner says, we've got until July 1st before we have to do this. We don't have to do it right away. But no. Time compression is a weapon, right? We've got to do it now to get it done. And this goes right back to what Kathy Giessel was croaking about in that last press conference, Ben, where she said, government spending is that's the only, we are the private economy is essentially what she was saying. We are the private economy in this. And yet we have a bunch of crony capitalists who are deathly afraid that they're not going to get their money for this year. And because they built their whole business plan on that government lucre, if it doesn't show here, Ben, am I wrong in looking at it from this perspective?
I don't think so. I think that it is very clear to me, and I wish that we're clear to others, that the demand for spending in the state of Alaska, both from a federal and a state perspective, is tied to individuals in the state of Alaska who've capitalized on that spending in their private lives. And therefore, you lobby the legislature to keep that going, because that's how you put food on your table. Now, as long as you say, on one hand, you say from a conservative point of view, you're like, hey, we don't want to hire a bunch of government employees because it takes 2 employees to do one job. We'd rather privatize that issue and let the private industry do that service for our government because it'll save us money, right? Well, but then you create that constituency at the local level or at the private level that says, well, I'm gonna bank on this service. You better keep paying the service. You better keep the service in line. And over time, you've created this dependency of the private sector on government. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the wrong way to do it. We just need to identify that that's where the pressure is coming from. The private sector in this regard is telling the state government, fork out $70 million or whatever the dollar figure is for those federal matching funds because we need to see this happen. Okay. What is absent from the conversation is the private sector demands of government that don't have anything to do with federal dollars or state dollars being handed out. What is that demand? That is keep costs low and keep taxes low so that we don't get overly burdened. And in the state of Alaska, since we don't have a large broad-based tax of some sort, the money that's going to pay for state government is coming out of permanent fund earnings. And so every dollar that gets spent towards state government that doesn't go to a dividend program is money that's being taken out of the private sector to pay for government. So which private entity, which small business is demanding of the legislature to ensure that some of the permanent fund earnings is being spent in the private economy? Who's passing that message to the legislature?
Right. Well, and I think it really, the privatization aspect is really, to me, is a separate thing. It's interesting the way you put it, and I agree with that in part. But again, what I'm pointing to is these corporations, these companies that instead of broadly embracing the entire market, both private and public, they base their entire business model to the exclusion of almost all else on these government contracts. And so when the government contracts dry up, that's when they go into a full-blown panic, and they all come together and they form these trade associations, and they say, government, you've got to keep spending. And they try and sell it to the public instead of saying, well, we'll take this private construction project. We'll do this. We'll do that. All those kind of things. That is part of the problem. This is where Alaska is at. And we've got construction companies that deal with roads and infrastructure that are talking about things like this. We've got construction companies that build almost exclusively. They build like schools. And I've seen the trade magazines, the Association of General Contractors, with a big thing on the front of the front page of the magazine that says selling schools to your local community. That's what they're doing. That's why they knocked down a school, a perfectly good school that could have been refurbished for half the cost. They knock it down, they tear it down, they build a brand new one. You've got the telecom companies like GCI and others who are getting tens of millions of dollars in older technology instead of embracing the new technology, and they're almost sole source contracts. And then you've got, of course, all the medical and the doctors and everybody else who don't want cuts to things like Medicaid and everything else, because now they predicated a big part of their business model and making money off the federal largesse. This is all part and parcel of being dependent on government on the right side of the political spectrum.
Yep. I don't disagree with you. Part of a business's decision to go after state dollars for construction, for example, might be also because there isn't enough money out there in the private, enough demand for that service in the private economy. Therefore, I go after the government dollar, right? Again, this is why, in my opinion, the government, if it wanted to do something that would incentivize growth in the economy, the non-government dependent economy, it would promote, it would figure out a way to reduce the cost of energy for Alaskans. And this is why the pipeline, in my opinion, the gas pipeline, is so doggone important. Why I think some other energy source to reduce the cost of electricity, talking a hydro plant, more coal or more natural gas fired plants, right? I'm talking about what do we do in order to produce more electrons to lower the cost of electricity and incentivize business to come into the state of Alaska. Then you have an economy that is not tied to government spending, that is able to grow because the inputs to business are less. Electricity costs less, therefore it is more profitable for me to do business.
Right. And Rob is echoing a part of what you said here. Senator Rob Myers in the chat room says, hard to build a business on the private market when the state holds on to so much of the money that it prevents the private economy from growing. And he's right. It is part of I can't place all the blame on the businesses, because this is what's happening is all of those funds are captive in the government spend. And so there's a much smaller private economy out there for it to be done. So this encourages this behavior on the part of private industry, construction companies, telecoms, etc., as well. All right, Ben Carpenter is our guest. He joined us a little bit early here. We're going to be spending the whole second hour with Ben. He's the host of the new fledgling enterprise called Oversight Live. And we're going to talk about that right at the top of the hour before we get into some of the things that are going on with the governor's plan and others. But we're going to continue. All right. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Don't forget, if you want to join the conversation, you could come over here on Facebook, facebook.com/Michael Duke Show /live, if you want to join the chat this morning. Or you can check us out on YouTube or Rumble. And of course, you can always support the show at the Common Sense Core by going to MichaelDukeShow.com and clicking on Join the Core. Hour 2, dead ahead. Time to go. Back with more right after this. Wow. We got super Ben and I were talking. I look up and there's 55 unread comments. I'm like, you guys are getting chatty out there this morning.
You're going to have to hire somebody to deal with your comments.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brian tries to keep me on track. Brian is my moderator on the Facebook side of things, and he tries to keep people on target and on track. But it definitely is. Who knows? Maybe one day this will be a high budget radio show, or maybe a medium budget radio show, and we can actually have some folks working for us and producing and doing stuff like that. Of course, that becomes a chicken and an egg problem, says Rob, because the same companies that lobby the government to keep the money, to keep the spending going. I mean, again, but I think your previous comment, Rob, is really the crux of the whole matter. It's hard for businesses to grow and to build a business in the private market when the state essentially holds all the cards and all the money. And prevents the private, and not just prevents it, but is just inured and is ambivalent to what's going on in the private economy, right? Ben?
The state managers, the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats, they own the resources of the state of Alaska. They don't own it. They manage it for us because we're the actual owners, right? But bureaucracy, government bureaucracy, is the least efficient, least effective way to manage anything. So now you've got a state that's set up as an ownership state where the bureaucracy is going to dole out the resources that they're managing on behalf of the owner, right? So we're from square one, we're setting up the least efficient way, and I would say effective also, least effective way to manage the resources within the state of Alaska. Other states don't do it this way. Private industry comes in and buys land, and they buy the rights to that resource that is on that land, and then they manage it. They got to meet the requirements that the state levies for protection of the environment and things like that, but they own it, and there's that incentive as the owner to actually manage it the way effectively and efficiently that they're going to do. In the state of Alaska, we don't develop land because it's owned and managed by the government.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, I mean, we're stuck in this conundrum because of the socialistic nature of the Alaska Constitution, because all the resources are owned collectively and there is no privatized mineral resource or anything else. It's kind of shifted the paradigm. So we have to work within this framework, whether we like it or not. And it's created this unique set of problems that Alaska has. Again, the resource curse that Rob has talked about, and others who write about, resource-driven economies. This is all part and parcel of that, where we become dependent. And again, the private sector and what's happening outside of the government means nothing to anybody, to any of these people. Not any of these people. I'm painting with a broad brush, but because there's Rob. But the majority.
I don't know how much time we got, but I was looking at some posts on a social media post by the Alaska Story, and one of the people in here says, they say, cut expenses, grow the economy, and you'll have more than enough money for the budget. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that sounds normal from 49 out of 50 states. Cut expenses, grow the economy, and you'll have more than enough money. The problem is, I don't know what part of the economy he's talking about, because the only thing that grows our state spending and grows revenue in the state is government money, meaning federal dollars, or oil money. That's it. So if you're going to grow the non-oil economy, there is no connection to the state budget for that. Very little. You've got road tax for gas. You pay a tax at the pump for gas. Fishing, you got fish taxes. That's it. There's no physical connection, no monetary connection to economic growth. If the Kenai Peninsula had 1,000 more jobs because was booming economically outside of the oil industry or outside of fishing for some reason, let's say a data plant comes in and plants down a data center comes in and plants itself on the Kenai Peninsula for some reason. Okay. There's not a connection there to the state budget, especially if they're an LLC and they don't pay a corporate income tax. Right. So we don't have the structure that we need that ties the economic engine to the legislature, where the legislature cares about the economic engine.
Well, and this was part of my conundrum when we were talking with Josh Church earlier in the week as lieutenant governor candidate. He was talking about, spurring on the private economy and doing this and doing that. And I'm like, great. But again, how does that benefit the state government, which is what we're talking about here? We're talking about the problem with the size and growth of state government when there is no connectivity between what's going on in the private economy outside of the oil industry and the functioning and the funding of the state. That's the problem. It is that disconnect. That is the biggest major problem that we have here in Alaska. As you can see, 43 seconds there, Ben, before we got to go.
I see the timer now. That's very handy.
Yeah, I just threw that up there just because.
Yeah, I think that if the state government was impacted by the cost of electricity the way everyday Alaskans are impacted by the cost of electricity, then we'd be having a different conversation. But if the cost of electricity goes up for them, they just take more of the dividend. It's not a where am I going to get my money? The government's always going to get its money somehow. So there's not that connection that there is to the private industry.
All right. Well, we're going to continue this. I'm going to put Ben back in the green room. We're going to come back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do all this thing together. We're back right after this.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning, my friends. Welcome to the big radio broadcast. We are on the Thursday edition of the show. How we got to Thursday so quick, I don't know. It's just like it's the fastest week. It's the fastest 2 hours in radio. It's what we do. Thursday, we just finished up with my sleep-deprived rantings in the first hour, talking about various things. You can go back and listen to it on the podcast if you want to be entertained by that and more. Joining us in hour two is Ben Carpenter. Ben and I have agreed to collaborate here, and we're going to bring Ben on a weekly basis to talk about what's going on in the legislature. Now, he is he's the new purveyor of the embryonic enterprise called Oversight Live, which, like any radio or podcast program, is always a challenge at the very beginning when you're trying to figure out how to do all these things because of the because of the technical challenges and everything else. But he's going to be giving you live or quasi-live commentary and play-by-play on things that are happening in the legislature. And he's got some start on that. We're going to talk with him about that here in just a minute. I want to mention tomorrow on the program, Darwin Nersessian is going to be joining us from the Firearms News, and he's going to be talking about SHOT Show and some of the other things. I'm sure we'll talk about what's going on in Minnesota, and we're also going to talk about the betrayal. Yes, I said it, the betrayal of President Trump to the Second Amendment, because it happened again, folks. It happened again. We got live video of the president just flapping his lips and talking about things that he really doesn't understand and is just trying to tell the room what it hears. That's going to be on tomorrow's program, though. That's going to be tomorrow. That'll be fun. All right. Meanwhile, let's get to it. We're going to bring on Ben Carpenter, who comes on and joins us now every Thursday in hour 2, sometimes hour 1, who is going to be talking about what's going on in the legislature with his new program called Oversight Live, which I'll let him describe, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details of it and how things are going, and then we'll get into some of the government stuff as well. We welcome him back for this hour. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Michael. Good to be with you again.
Coming on. Yeah, so I know that I was getting text messages and Facebook messages. I can't. Where's Ben? I can't. How do I see this Oversight Live? Give me the secret link. They thought I had some kind of secret link to watch your program or whatever. So tell us.
Yeah.
So tell us what's happening with Oversight Live and what's going on right now. Give us the dope.
So there's a hurdle that you have to overcome going from a show that's recorded and you fix all of the details in post-processing or post-recording, right? And in the processing piece of it, and then actually doing something live where you don't have that opportunity. I thought I had all my ducks in a row. We were broadcasting, I think it was Tuesday night, and I was receiving messages back that said, hey, your audio, not my audio is fine, but the recordings that I was presenting were echoing. So you couldn't understand what was happening. It was horrible. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen in the test that I did. Like I tested it all before I started, and it didn't do that. So I think I've got that fixed. And I spent last night talking to a couple legislators about this fiscal plan, and I probably should have attempted to get back online and go live with my thoughts, but my time got consumed talking to the legislators.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is a challenge. I mean, again, I have been on the air broadcasting, not only on radio. I've been on radio for 25 years, but I have been simulcasting this radio show to the internet live for, I guess, 10 years, almost 10 years now. I've been broadcasting. In fact, it has been 10 years because I was broadcasting before Facebook had a live. I've been simulcasting this show on the internet since before Facebook had a live option, because I was broadcasting to Periscope, which was part of a Twitter thing way back in the day, which was technically difficult and challenging, but we did it. But I've been doing it for a long time, and it is, I mean, you can ask folks who are watching this thing on the internet. There are challenges. There are definitely challenges. And I tried to help Ben. We spent 2 hours last week trying to get his audio unkerfluffled and everything else. But it will work. It will work out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out one way or the other. Now, Ben, where can folks find I mean, I know your website is not quite live yet, but you've got your Facebook page, you've got YouTube. Where can folks find this, what you have all right now, as, you know, as messed up as it is, or as you know, kind of wonky as it is?
In progress. Yeah. You can go to YouTube, Facebook, and X. All three of those are now, I can broadcast live too. So you can go to Oversight Live channel on YouTube and X. And Facebook is going to put me in purgatory for about 60 days.
Yeah.
I'm broadcasting live on my personal Facebook page. And then once I pass the test, so to speak, they're going to allow me to broadcast to Oversight Live handle or channel on Facebook.
It's kind of crazy that Facebook makes you wait 2 months. You create a page. You may have been a Facebook user for 10 years, but if you create a new page, they make you wait 2 months before you can go live with that page, which is crazy, but it is what it is. So at least now you can go to YouTube, you can go to X, and it's youtube.com/@Oversight Live, and it's on X at Oversight Live. And you can go to Ben Carpenter's personal Facebook page to watch these things. And
so I've tested that part out. The bad audio that came through, it was recorded and saved on X and YouTube and Facebook, and I deleted it all because it didn't need to be there. But that works now. So I know that I'm broadcasting live to all three of those. My intention, my endeavor is to do this, connect with the audience and the people in the evening when people come home from work and there's some time available then before they go to bed. So I'm going to shoot for 7 p.m. and spend an hour going through what I think is maybe some of the priority stuff that we need to see and hear from our legislators down in Juneau. That includes floor sessions occasionally, although you don't have a whole lot of stuff going on in the floor session early on in the session, but the committee meetings for sure, there are things that you need to see and hear. And I'm going to hopefully bring that to you because there's way too much content to be able to show it all. So I'm going to have to prioritize and bring you what I think is most pertinent.
Yeah, because again, you've got hours worth of committee hearings a day and everything else. And that's why, I love your idea, but again, nobody has got 8 hours a night where they can sit down and watch all that. So a brief, 2 hour, 3 hour summary show of what the highlights of what happened is makes a lot of sense, and I think does a good job of that. But I got to tell you, you got to quit deleting stuff from your YouTube channel, even if it's bad. You got to have some content up there so people can at least see a little bit about what's going on.
Understood.
Yeah. So even if it's busted, I have some shows up there on Facebook that are half the show has no audio, just because something went bad. But then we just tell them to go listen to the podcast if they want to do that. But it's good. So again, youtube.com/@Oversight Live, the @ symbol @Oversight Live. And it should be a good discussion. And you're going to get your website set up so it has just the links, right? I can help you
That's
do
correct,
that.
yeah.
If you need help with that, let me know, because you can just put up a page with the logo and all the links to where people can find you. That's all people need to do when they go that. So I hope to see that good. And so when's the next time that you're going to be going live on this, Ben? When's your next big deal?
Well, I normally have meetings on Thursday nights. I'm checking my calendar here. I'm probably going to do it tonight because I don't have anything on my calendar. So we're going to shoot for it tonight.
All right. So Oversight Live on YouTube, probably the best way to do it right now, or you can go to Ben Carpenter's personal Facebook page. Probably YouTube's easier because then you can you don't have to subscribe or be part of anything. And I know there's a lot of people out there that hate Facebook. So it is what it is.
I would love to see us conservatives move away from Facebook. It would be so much easier and better to be having a conversation on X or other sites. Facebook's horrible.
Exactly.
For the person trying to broadcast and communicate, their algorithms are not pleasant or not supportive of conservative.
Yeah, but the worst part is historically, because I broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble. I broadcast on them all. I haven't broadcast on X because I just never bothered to set that up because X didn't have it at the time. But I would steer away from Facebook as well, except for that's where the vast majority of the viewers come from. It's just one of those things. I could see that. In fact, I can look at it right now with all the people who are watching on the various channels, just the simulcast right now, and 3/4 of them are watching on Facebook. So, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Right. Good news is the programs that we use to bring the live, if you're texting in any of those social media platforms, all those texts will come in to me live during the show, just like it's happening now with yours. And it's agnostic for that, from that perspective. I get to communicate and you get to communicate with me with whichever social media platform you choose.
Yeah, those combined, the combined chat widgets are amazing, and we use it here on the program all the time so that folks can watch all of the comments coming in and everything else. So tonight, 7 p.m., Ben, that's the thing you're going to shoot for tonight at 7. All right, so tonight at 7, Ben Carpenter, Oversight Live, and you can go get subscribed, and you should get notified. In fact, you need to subscribe and then ring the bell. so that you can hit subscribe and then hit the bell icon, and you'll get all notifications when he goes live. So there you go. All right, Ben Carpenter continues with us. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about the governor's plan. We'll get a little tease of what Ben has been following the last couple days, and we will continue. Back with more, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay.
You're the consummate producer.
Carpenter is our guest, and we're going to, let me pull myself down here to the little deal there. And we're going to get into this. So yeah, Ben, don't get discouraged. You're doing you're doing yeoman's work. I've been through all this, and quite honestly, I have a brand new computer sitting here next to me. Here's the story behind the scenes. Don't tell anybody. I have a brand new computer sitting next to me here on the floor that I've had for almost 6 months. And I said during the Christmas break, I was going to swap out my broadcast computer with this brand new computer that I built. And I didn't, in part because I know that it's going to require 2 days of fiddle farting around to make sure all the audio works and everything's and it all streams and I just couldn't bring myself to do it during my Christmas break. I just couldn't do it. So I'm kind of waiting for this computer to just absolutely die and force me into doing it. But I feel you, baby. I feel you.
That's why I think we're going to have to run off the fiscal cliff before we fix our budget situation in the state of Alaska, because no one wants to go through the pain beforehand.
Oh, that's kind of hurtful, Ben. That's kind of hurtful.
It's just human nature. It's not a dig on Michael Dukes at all. We all do it.
Yeah, I definitely feel it. I definitely feel that whole same thing of like, oh man, I really. But anyway, and between you and your other helpers and anything I can do, we'll just we'll help you out. You're
a great promoter, and I appreciate the advice, assistance, and support while we're getting this going.
Yeah, this is not as easy. Over the years, I've gotten a lot of calls from people who are like, "I'm going to start a podcast. Can you walk me through all the?" I'm like, you're talking hours. This is going to be a week's worth of work. This is going to be 40 to 50 hours of you getting everything set up properly. Easily. That's a minimum of getting it all set up, and that's just to barely get it running, and then you'll spend another 30 to 40 hours polishing it up. And so it's a huge endeavor.
Let Miguel know that I saw his subscription come through.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, and you can go over and you can subscribe to Oversight Live over there. Just go to the link I just dropped in the chat room. Probably YouTube going to be the best thing to subscribe to him on for right now. Because again, he's 60 days. That blows my mind. 60 days away from being able to broadcast live on the Facili book. All right.
Enough about me.
Yeah, enough about it's all about you. It's all about this whole thing is all about you. Any other comment you want to make? I don't want to have to repeat ourselves, but any other comment you want to make on our first hour, where I was talking about the ranked choice voting, or we were talking about the crony capitalist whinging going on. Any other final thoughts on that here in the last minute and 50 seconds here?
Well, I think it just is really important for voters, especially, but Alaskans in general, to understand that how we've grown up in the state of Alaska under this constitution, this kind of a socialist state, that the private economy is connected to the government through what we've established and the challenges that we've come through and what we're trying to overcome and the decisions we made. And that connection is what the legislature sees. It doesn't see what isn't there, what could be there. There was somebody that made a comment here earlier that said, the oil that flows and goes out of the state and is exported, some of that should be staying in the state, and we should be doing something with it, value added, if
Right.
we wanted to see a bigger economy, right? We do that in Nikiski. We take some of our crude and we turn it into gasoline and we turn it into jet fuel at the Marathon refinery that I pass every day I go into town. So it is possible for us to do that, but the economics have to be right. And the message I'm trying to help people see is the economics are better when you have low cost energy. Lower the cost of electricity, and you're going to see those opportunities jump up. It's an entrepreneurial mindset that says if we can reduce the cost of the business inputs, then industry will take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've missed out on that value added stuff for years. And even when we had it, like Fairbanks, North Pole had a refinery, and now it's basically not doing anything. I mean, we've seen that kind of go by the wayside, and it's problematic, but it's what we need to do if we really want to grow wealth in this economy. All right, here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. Ben Carpenter is our guest. He's the host of Oversight Live, which you can find on YouTube, X, and Facebook. He'll be broadcasting during the session, trying to broadcast every night at 7 p.m., every weekday night, I guess, at 7 p.m. He joins us today to talk about what's going on with the, what we're seeing right now in the legislature. And Ben, you and I were texting earlier this morning before the show, talking about some of the priorities. The governor's come out with his plan. It's a multi-point plan. It has a lot of the components that were in the fiscal policy working group, not all of them, but a lot of them. And he's pretty strident from what I'm understanding. Hit me with what's going on and what you're hearing behind the scenes with your contacts and connections there in the legislature. What are you hearing about the governor's plan?
So what I understand, and again, I wasn't part of the conversations, I'm just hearing secondhand here. So, but what I understand is there's kind of a 10-point plan that he has put down on paper, and is more or less wants to see all 10, but has got some ones that he's, diehard must-haves. Number one on his list is a spending limit, or some limitation of spending, and he's chosen to identify 1% as 1% growth year to year as his proposal for a limit. And it's an interesting position to take of looking at what happened last year and what can happen this year based on the decisions that happen in the legislature. I want to show an example here. If you look at what Legislative Finance Division presented for the UGF fiscal summary earlier this year, so just a week ago, using the fall forecasted revenue picture. So that's going to change because the price of oil was not the same when they made that forecast. So the legislature is forecasting that we've got an additional $70 million in UGF oil money. Okay. That's probably going to dry up or dwindle because the price of oil has dropped. They're also forecasting $198 million more in the POMV draw. And this is really where I want to focus. That's a little over 5% growth in the amount of revenue, or the amount of money that the legislature sees that it has available to itself from the permanent fund earnings. Now, I want to compare that to the concept that the governor has put out and that others have put out, is saying, hey, we need to get our permanent fund to $100 billion as quickly as possible, because 5% draw of $100 billion is $5 billion. So you could in essence fund all of your state budget from the permanent fund earnings. Okay. Looking at the same summary, the total amount coming from the POMV draws, this is including what you would have to pay for dividends, right? 3.9, have to zoom in here, $3.99 billion. Okay. So we're roughly $4 billion. We're only $1 billion away from that $5 billion mark is why we have this goal of $100 billion. Okay. Now, What happens when we reach $100 billion? The next year, your expectation and my expectation is that the legislature gets to continue to grow. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The permanent fund continues to get to grow. Okay. So we have this goal of growing the permanent fund every year. What happens every year when you've got 198, roughly $200 million more than you did last year? And you put in a 1% spending limit. You have a complete disconnect. You're saying we can only grow 1% of the state government, but we're going to recognize our system is going to provide 5% more in growth or in revenue. So the pressure is always going to be on the legislature to spend that money because it's available to them. That is point number one. And point number two is that you're creating a system that is going to provide a perpetually increasing sum of money for your legislature to spend, which means you're going to end up with a growing government every year. Every year, there's going to be more money to spend on government and government programs and government employees. And that's not limited government. That is the recipe for what you have at the federal government, where your legislature, your Congress, gets to grow the government on the backs of debt. They don't have to tax you more. They just print money and go into debt. And that's what has fueled this growth of the federal government. So the same thing is going to happen with the state government, because we're going to have this free money that's not tied to any kind of tax. You don't get to say no. Why would you say no? It's not coming out of your pocket, but government's going to grow.
Right. Well, this is Parkinson's principle, right? Which is, work expands to fill up all available time. Parkinson's principle for government is government spending expands to consume every available dollar. That's why the cornerstone of any plan has to include a spending cap, some kind of control or mechanism or governor to control that spending in government. Now, we've seen some different spending caps be proposed over the last few years. And of course, the biggest problem is that almost all of these spending caps are statutory in nature. Now, the difference between statutory and constitutional is pretty huge. And the problem with the statutory cap, Ben, is that we know that the legislature can ignore statute.
Yeah, it will just ignore it.
Yeah, and in fact, historically, we've had statutory spending caps that have passed and then been ignored in the same session after they were passed. Oh, we'll just do it this one time.
I should send the governor a bill, to be perfectly honest. Much of what's on his fiscal plan is very similar to the fiscal plan that I put out in my time in the legislature. So I teed this up. I didn't have the exact same things that he had on his plan, but the concept is the same. You got to have a constitutional spending limit if you're going to have a spending limit, and tie the limit to something that matters in the private economy. That way, the legislature is looking to the private economy. His spending limit, his idea to limit spending 1% growth just forces the legislature to say, well, what was the dollar figure we spent last year? And now we've got 1% more to spend. That's the allowance we have. Whereas if you have a spending limit that's tied to GDP, then the legislature would look at GDP and say, what was GDP last year? Well, is GDP more this year? Oh, okay, we get to spend more. If it's not more, then the limit applies and we don't get to spend more. But it's a system that forces the legislature to look at not what they spent last year, but what the size of the economy was. So if you want more revenue, then you increase GDP, and then you have more spending authority. Couple that with a revenue structure, a tax structure that pulls money out of the private economy to pay for state government, and you have a complete system, a complete structure that works and reinforces itself. This, putting a 1% spending limit in statute based on what you spent last year, it's not an effective structure at what you want, which is limited government focused on economic growth.
What we have is isolated systems. right? If you look at it from a system engineer or a systemic kind of point of view, what we have is isolated systems. We've got the government, which is in its own self-perpetuating loop, mostly with the permanent fund draw, receiving monies from there, and from the oil companies, the only part of the private sector that's really affected by that. But the entire rest of the private sector is kind of in its own isolated bubble. And so these isolating systems just kind of further exacerbate the situation. And because there is no connectivity between what's going on, they don't care what the GDP of the state is. They care about what the GDP of the oil industry is and the permanent fund. Everything else could go by the wayside as far as they're concerned. And so this isolation component is the biggest part of the problem. Now, that leads to the question of, well, Ben, you're talking about taxing the private economy and taxing the people and getting, that didn't help in California. That didn't help in some of these other areas. What do you say to that?
I say that conversation is the perpetual conversation that always exists. It is the downward pressure on state spending that always has to exist. It is the healthy application of government, right? And this is what I'm saying. If you want a healthy state is a government that is established, that is supported by the economic engine. That conversation has to happen with the owners of the government. That's the voters. That's the residents. We have that disconnect, and we're soon to be establishing where the voters don't matter with regard to the revenue that's coming into the state, because it will be coming from the permanent fund earnings. So you can't stop it and say, well, we don't want to spend money on that, and we're not going to pay our taxes. You can never say that because you don't pay the taxes. The disconnect from the voter in the state of Alaska and what we're going to establish here, if we're not careful, is a complete disconnect when you say, I want limited government, and I recognize that I only want the government that I'm willing to pay for. Okay. We're not having that conversation at the state level. At the local level, you say, hey, I don't want my property tax to go up. I don't want more government at the borough level or at the city level. I don't want my sales tax or my property tax to go up. At the state level, we're not having that conversation. A healthy state would be a public that asks its government to do only that which the people are willing to pay for. We're setting up a system where we're going to have perpetually more money every year, and government will be able to grow and do what government wants to do every year. And they don't have to ask you for more money. So the danger here, the risk is not that you have taxes. The risk is that you don't have limited government.
Right.
Look at the federal government and the overreach that it has in our nation. And that's what you're going to have in the state of Alaska if you give it a perpetual source of money.
And I would argue also, when people bring up the California example, I would argue two things. First and foremost, and thanks to Rob Myers for bringing this to my attention and making me think about it. But in California, they utilize a progressive income tax. And of course, their sales pitch there is, oh, we'll have government, but we'll make the rich pay for it. Not, the lower half of the electorate doesn't really pay anything. We'll just soak the rich for it and make it happen, which is what happens in many high tax states, New York, California, Illinois, things like that. But then there's a secondary effect of that, which is people leave. People do leave, and it will eventually implode. You're seeing that in California, the out-migration of California right now, and the out-migration from New York of wealthy people, wealthy individuals who create jobs in industry. They're fleeing those tax regimes and going to Florida and Texas and other places. So it does work in that effect too. Now here in Alaska, we're talking about having a sales tax, which is equitable across the board. It's regressive, but it is at least hits everyone across the board equally, and would, like you said, make people look. In Fairbanks, they've got a tax cap. They've got a tax cap that they've had in place for 25, almost 30 years. They had a $10 million vote a year ago, 2 years ago this May, where they said, we'll bust the tax cap for this $10 million for schools. And even in bluish Fairbanks, it was overwhelmingly defeated. Like, no more taxes. So you're right. People at those local levels, they're voting with their pocketbooks in this. To say that if we had a tax here in the state, a state tax, that it wouldn't matter, we'd be like California, is untrue, because we can see historically that local communities are voting themselves away from those things, like this $12 million tax that the Anchorage is that they just snuck in on the Anchorage ballot. They're going to have a special $12 million tax. I guarantee you that people are going to say no to that because they just saw a 30% increase in their assessments.
It's a false equivalency, a false argument. And it's fear-based, right? Well, if we have a tax, then it'll just grow and it'll be like other states that has happened at. Well, what's the alternative? The alternative that we have right now that is government growth and free money. That's the alternative that we have. It is and hear me here, because I don't want to poke fingers in eyes, but the person that says, well, we can have state government and not have to pay for it, that is a greedy position to come from. And hear me, I don't want to pay taxes like everybody else. What I don't want to do is pay excessive taxes, because I am willing to pay for the things that I think government should do. I just don't want to pay for things that government shouldn't do. And that is the battle that I have. And that's what happens in California. You got government paying for things that they shouldn't be doing.
Right. Well, on top of it all, Ben, we are already paying taxes. That's the thing. That's the thing we don't see. We have the hidden tax in the form of all royalties and revenues going straight to the government. So we're not seeing the benefit of that. We have the secondary hidden tax of them now cutting the PFD. We are being taxed. This is the problem that people don't understand. We're already being taxed. And if you've got 2 or 3 people in your household, you're being taxed up to $10,000 a year that you're not even seeing.
That's right.
So it is already there.
It is in lieu of tax, right? We've got companies that get set up on major projects, and instead of paying taxes, they have PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. All right. We as owners of the state, the social estate, are paying something to the state government by not receiving money, right? Something that has statutorily required to come to us. We're foregoing it in order to not have some other tax. That's the government doesn't, the state government doesn't get to print money. So it has to find revenue, find money from somewhere. So it either takes it out of our pocket in the form of taxes, or it takes it out of corporate, which gets passed down to the consumer anyway, or it takes it out of earnings from the investment. And I have to push back on Randy. Randy says that there's nothing wrong with free money. I beg to differ completely from a human perspective.
Yeah.
Free money is not good for government.
Yeah.
It is not good for government because it disconnects the decision making that the government does. It needs to acknowledge that the decisions that come, that what government does needs to come from the owner. That's us. And it disconnects that completely. Free money to me in the form of resources that I own per the Constitution, that free money spent in the private sector or put in my savings account, I don't see anything wrong with that. Even if somebody chooses to go buy booze with it, the owner of the booze company benefits from it, right? I think that's a poor decision, and you should do something wise with your money, but that's personal choice. That's the owner speaking. The government is not the owner of the money, and it's not the owner of me. So I want the government, I want the structure to be complete so that the owner, the employee, the government respects the owner. And this is where free money for the government is bad, because it will no longer respect me as the owner of the state.
Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're going to continue with him. He's the host of Oversight Live. You can find him at youtube.com/@Oversight Live. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, commercial break time right now. Tim says, since the state can ignore the PFD statute, can I ignore the criminal and vehicle statutes? I mean, wouldn't that be nice, right? I mean, they can ignore them all they want, but you is the thing. Randy also dropped. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say Randy dropping another gem in the chat room. A cut to the PFD is not a true tax. Well, I'm going to let you argue with Matt Berman, the professor of economics at ICER, who actually came out with an article last year and talked about how the PFD was the biggest tax the state had ever faced. I mean, it is a tax.
Well,
now,
Randy's softening his position, I think, because it used to be a cut in the PFD is not a tax. Now it's not a true tax.
Yeah, it's not a true tax. Has the effect of a tax.
It's
Smells
got the
like a
effect.
tax. Walks like a tax, quacks like a tax. It must be a tax. That's all I'm
spending. Government spending is taxation.
Yeah.
Period. End of sentence. The federal government is spending free money in the form of debt that somebody in the future is going to have to pay taxes to pay back. Whether that's Alaskans, Americans, or whether that's through tariffs and it's somebody outside the country, somebody has to pay it back. Spending is taxation.
Well, that's a great question for Randy. Randy, do you think all this money that the federal government is leveraging and borrowing and the quantitative easing, do you think that's a tax? I mean, it's not technically a tax, but it has the same effect as tax. Is it a tax? It's all government spending is taxation. You're 100% right, because government produces nothing and consumes everything it can.
Yeah. About a quarter of all the federal dollars that come into the state of Alaska are from debt. So we're literally saying state money needs to be spent on to receive federal dollars that our next generation is going to pay for. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about how greedy that is for this generation to say, I don't care whether the federal government has a balanced budget. Go ahead and give me my money now and let the future generation pay for it. There's nothing other than greed to describe what we are doing to ourselves and to our posterity.
Yeah, you're giving justification and validation to the federal behavior by saying, give us that money. By saying, give us that money, you're validating their behavior of tax and spend and inflate and spend on future generations. It's 100% right. I can't. Oh, by the way, Randy, the state government spent all of your returned PFDs last week. I think they spent it in one day, Randy. I know you returned your PFD. They spent that in one day, guaranteed. That extra $1,000, probably in about 3 minutes. They probably spent it. Frank says,
Frank. Yeah, you and I were thinking the same thing, Michael. I never said buying booze is wrong per se. I said spending your dividend on booze. There's probably wiser things to do than spend it on booze.
Well,
right?
and I caught that as a backhanded comment on the legislator a couple of years ago who talked about people. It was like a racist comment talking about people in the villages just taking their dividends and buying booze with it and everything. I mean, again, it's their money. Do what you want with it. You want to buy, big screen TVs, vacations to Hawaii, hookers and blow, or heating oil. You do you, right? It's your money.
I'm using it as an example to show that there is a range of things that you can spend the money on, but you're spending it in the private economy. I guess you could also write the check to the government and say, hey, I haven't paid enough in taxes this year, and I really want to see more government. So I'm going to sign my PFD check over to you. There's actually a bill in the legislature to allow people to do that. Maybe people are already doing it. I don't know. But that is one of the things that you could do with a permanent fund dividend check. Promote your government with it. All I'm saying is there is a benefit to that money being spent in private industry, into mom and pop businesses in the state of Alaska that hire people. That's beneficial too. The argument at the legislature is, well, it's more beneficial to have that money paying for government because then you don't have to tax people. Yeah. The money's still coming from the people, whether it's coming from your investment earnings or whether it's coming from taxation, because government didn't create the money. It doesn't create anything.
Right. No. And I like what you said earlier when you were talking about people need to have a say in all components of government, and they essentially don't at this point. And here's the problem in Alaska. The citizens have abdicated in their aversion to any other form of tax. They've abdicated their responsibility to keep their government in check. And whether that's through apathy or whether it's just through ignorance, they've abdicated it completely. And that's
and whether you're a poor person, and I'm speaking from somebody who was on WIC and was eligible for food stamps when I had 2 young kids and was junior enlisted in the military. As sad as that is, we qualify for welfare as we're just starting out in the military. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from somebody with experience here.
Yeah.
I still have a responsibility for the size of my government, just like a wealthy person does.
All right. Ben Carpenter, our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do this thing.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, continuing right now, Ben Carpenter is our guest, host of Oversight Live. You can again find him at youtube.com/@OversightLive. If you want to meet the candidates tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. in the Kenai at Paradisio's restaurant, I know Bernadette Wilson and Mike Schauer are going to be there. That's the one that I know about right now. If any other candidates out there want to have announcements for their meet and greets, they can send them to me here, and I'll put them out on the program as we talk about it. But I know I got somebody in the chat room commented on that this morning here as well. Ben, we're looking at this 10-point plan that the governor has put forward, and you were saying that that he's okay with it, that he wants at least some of these. But we were just talking about the spending limit, revenue cap. We're on to what, the PFD split now? So
interesting that the concept of a constitutional amendment is tied to the combining of the ERA and the permanent corpus and the constitutional split of the earnings for PFD and for government. Okay. So this is an interesting concept. The legislature and some in the state are saying, hey, you know what? The earnings reserve account can be spent by a simple majority vote, and we need to protect that portion of the fund, all of the earnings. So we're going to protect it by rolling it into the corpus, which on face of it is like, okay, great. More protection's better. I don't want to have the legislature be able to blow money either. So I like that. But what happens when you constitutionalize a 5% draw? What system do you create? Okay, well, 5% or whatever percent you put in the Constitution is great until one of two things or both of them happen. If you're going to authorize the legislature to spend up to 5%, they're going to spend 5% every year, okay? What happens if your earnings aren't at 5%? Well, we're going to have a 5-year look back. Okay, well, what happens if your average earnings, meaning you've had multiple years of low returns? What happens then if you're constitutionalizing that 5% out and they can draw the money from the corpus? Okay. Well, if your earnings don't keep up with your 5% draw, then you're going to have to draw from the principal of the fund to pay that 5%. Now, add on top of that, what happens in a year or a series of years where you have high inflation? Then you're going to have to draw from the principal to pay the 5%. So the effect that you would be constitutionalizing would be in years where you have low returns and or high inflation. And the worst possible case would be years with low returns and high inflation, like we just went through for the last couple of years. You're going to draw down the corpus in order to pay the 5%. So you're not protecting the fund by doing this. Now, if you created a constitutional amendment that said we're not going to draw anything above real earnings, meaning we're already counting for inflation and the earnings of the fund, now you might be able to protect the fund. So I have opposed this concept because I think that the fund is better protected when the legislature only has access to pay to spend the earnings and not the corpus. But if we are going to go this route, and I think this is where we're headed, then we had better tie the spending to inflation and to returns so that the legislature is not authorized to spend more than you earn and that you have to cover for inflation.
That's been my argument, Ben, is that this is really not about protecting the fund, which is what their argument is. This is about protecting the fund. My argument is this is about protecting the spend. That's what it's about. It's about
100%.
Because they've run out the SBR. They've drained the CBR down to where they really can't take anything more out of it for cash flow and emergencies and everything else. So it's essentially at its, close to its bottom line of where it needs to be, because it has to have $1 billion in there essentially to float around, and it's got almost $3 billion in there now. They don't want to draw from that. Plus, it takes a 3/4 vote to get that out. And they've drained almost all the permanent fund. So there's no more available pots of money. You saw that they drew some from the higher education fund and some of these other funds. So you could see they're already casting around, starting to get desperate. And this plan came about when they realized, oh, well, the biggest chunk of money is this $80 billion permanent fund with $60 billion of it, or $65 billion of it in the corpus. We need to have access to that. This is not about protecting, and I don't know why the governor is falling into this pit, but this is not about protecting the permanent fund. This is about protecting the continued spending.
The governor is falling into this because the governor believes that $100 billion permanent fund kicking off $5 billion is a good thing for the state of Alaska for government. That's why. This is the prevailing theory in many Republican circles. Let's avoid taxation by funding government with the permanent fund earnings. That's good in many people's minds, but that is not how you maintain a healthy state. A healthy state has to have government tied to the economy, because the economy is what keeps us healthy. It's what provides jobs. It's what pays for food on my table and my ability to send my kids through education or whatever I want to do in life. The economy is what matters, not government. And even in Republican circles, we're focused on the permanent fund earnings as our saving grace because it'll allow us to not pay taxes. But that disconnect in not paying taxes means that the government doesn't care about your private economy.
Right. Overt taxes, because we're already paying the taxes.
Yeah, overt taxes.
Taxes. Right. We're down to the last 3 minutes here. So, Ben, again, the fastest 2 hours in radio. But summate here the rest of this thing and what the governor really wants, what he's focusing on. What do you think has a chance of getting through? What doesn't? Where do we go from here? What's your take on this?
Well, my guess is that the legislature has the bandwidth to do something about the earnings reserve account and maybe a 25-75 split of the dividend in the statute. That might be something that they could swing, but a complete fiscal plan like this, I think that Bert Stedman already telegraphed at the press conference that this is a hurdle too great to jump over. We can only do one or two big things in the legislature every session. There's a lot of things here, so there's more than one or two. So we probably can't do this, right? I don't think the legislature is going to do a fiscal plan. I don't think so. It's outside of the capacity of the leaders of the Senate to think that far ahead and do that many things. They're not going to do it. So you can pick one thing off there. Maybe they can find. The problem is a constitutional amendment is going to require. It's not a problem, but it'll require a vote of the people. So whatever they come up with has got to be something that the people are going to swallow. If the narrative is this constitutional amendment protects the fund because we're rolling the ERA that's spendable into the corpus that's not spendable, and we'll authorize ourselves to only draw 5%, so it's protected. Okay, that's a half truth. That's a half truth, which is another word for a lie.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Ben, he's going to be on live tonight starting at 7 p.m. YouTube.com/@Oversight Live. That's the @ symbol. YouTube.com/@Oversight Live. Ben Carpenter, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you, my friend. We will see you next week.
Always fun. We'll see you, Michael.
Always good. Hold the line for a second, Ben. All right, folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow, Darwin Narcessian will be joining us from the Firearms News for Firearms Friday. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. We'll see you then. And Terry has this great comment here. She says, and cabbage is going to be the state vegetable. No, you know what's going to be the state vegetable? Legislators. That's going to be the state vegetable. It is, because they just don't get it. I mean, we just can't love too many things. We can't do. We can only do one or two things. We can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. I mean, come on.
Do you know what happens? You know what happens if you focus on low hanging fruit?
Yeah. What happens?
You miss, and you never get to the fruit that's at the top of the tree. The big things that we have to deal with in the state are being overcome because we're all focused on the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And isn't this, we're going to run just a minute long here, but isn't this just exactly what the Fiscal Policy Working Group talked about? That you can't do one or two of these things in isolation, that it has to be a holistic plan, because otherwise you'll never circle back around to those two or three things that you left off the plate, right? Oh, we'll get to that. Oh, but it just doesn't happen that way.
That statement that it has to be all of these, not cherry pick, is recognizing that the fiscal levers that you need to do to create a more sound structure is the fiscal problem, and then you have a political problem sitting on top of it. So the only way that you reach agreement, compromise, is to have an entire plan where one side of the argument gets a little bit of what they want and the other side gets a little bit of what they want. This is what we would think bipartisanship is all about, right? So you've got a legislature that's all about bipartisanship. You got Republicans that would rather work with Democrats and call it bipartisan, but you can't come up with a fiscal plan that's bipartisan.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. You're lying to people.
Well, and again, it's just that nobody wants to be the adult in the room and take responsibility. I mean, you're seeing people bail out of the legislature now, right? You're seeing people who are, 40 years of retire. It's like all of a sudden they realize the music is about to stop and there's not enough chairs. And they're like, ooh, I don't want to be the guy standing around saying, being the adult in the room and saying, well, we've spent too much and we can't keep doing it. I mean, somebody's going to get called on the carpet on this deal eventually, because either the wheels are going to come off the bus or somebody's going to stand up, and somebody's going to have to be the adult in the room, and nobody wants to be that guy or gal. Nobody wants to be that person. And that's where we're at right now, right, Ben?
Principled leadership is risky. You might get unelected.
Exactly. Which are they? No, we can't. That's the ultimate goal. That's why we have such a short-sighted mentality in the state, because we don't care what happens to the private economy. We only care about the government spends. Therefore, all the powers in the government. Therefore, the ultimate thing that I could do is to get reelected, to continue to be part of that power structure. So therefore, my vision is always 2 years or 4 years or whatever. It's always this short-term vision of what can I bring home to make sure that I get brought back here the next week, right? That's what it's about.
It is about the election cycle. That's why don't expect anything significant to happen in the second year of a legislative cycle.
Yeah.
Only safe things happen.
Yeah.
You got to do this in the first session of the legislature.
Final question, Ben. Do we get a dividend this year? Or is this year the end of the dividend, or is next year the end of the dividend?
Hard to say. If the dividend survives, it doesn't survive past the new federal money that's coming in. So if we can figure out a way to have a dividend for the next couple of years, when we've got over $1 trillion being sent to the state of Alaska for this rural healthcare transformation. So you're looking at over $200 million every year that we're going to grow the healthcare industry.
Right. So $1 billion, not $1 trillion, but $1 billion.
Did I say $1 trillion? I meant $1 billion. Yeah. The healthcare industry is going to have this influx of federal money. The state's going to divvy it up how the state wants to divvy it up. And new positions are going to be created, both in the private sector, in a private company, because there's money flowing in from the state, and from state bureaucracies are going to have to grow. And when that money dries up, all of those jobs will not have revenue because it's not based on economic growth in the private sector. It is based on government large S. So now you're going to have this demand for additional spending. That's, in essence, if the dividend's not gone by then, it will be then.
Yep. Ben Carpenter, our guest. Ben, thanks so much for coming on board. We appreciate you, my friend. We'll see you tonight.
See you later.
All right. Thanks for coming out. Folks, we are out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.